Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Chiefs Digest live stream Q&A. I am Matt Derrick, as usual. Late as usual. I've been doing great on my New Year's resolutions for the most part. I was late for the first thing of the 2026 calendar year. Since then, I have been on time for everything since then. Very, very proud of myself, except for this live stream. So this is the second thing that I've been late for. This was actually a couple of technical difficulties. You can tell there's a little bit different look tonight, different view. We're working on some things, getting some technical assistance from the great Ryan Tracy, who will also not want me to mention his name so that he won't be associated with any of the technical difficulties that we're having. But we're moving in the right direction, people. We're moving in the right direction. So I know Luttrell is here. Hooray, hooray. It is Q&A day. I know we might be, since we did get the late start and the late schedule, nobody will be held against you if you're rolling in a little bit late. We will expect that. Just going real quickly through just obviously the news of the week, news of the day, what's going on. We did get to hear from Andy Reid to wrap up the 2026 season and a little bit of the Raiders game on Sunday. I don't know if there was anything groundbreaking in there. There's probably some things that we can talk about that might come up this evening. There's going to be some changes this offseason. There's no doubt about that. Will they be as substantial as many of you want? I'm guessing no. I could be surprised, but I think that not sure that the quote from NFL Network over the weekend about substantial reboot of the roster was something that I necessarily expect. I could be surprised, but I think that you're going to obviously see some changes, but I don't know if there's going to be wholesale changes. Maybe one person's definition of a substantial reboot is different than mine, and maybe with the changes that they're planning, maybe some of you will even think that that's a substantial reboot. I think there will be some changes, but we're going to see what happens here. And I thought, like I said, I think that some of the more interesting things that Andy Reid talked about on Monday, particularly in regards to the run game and how it connects to the passing game and some of their issues there. I think are going to be worth discussing, things we've discussed throughout the season, and we're probably going to continue to discuss all the way up into the draft and beyond until the beginning of the season. Other than that, I don't know if I have a whole lot. I've got some interesting ideas about some things and some thoughts. Nikki bringing it in with the Harbaugh fired thing. I mean, that was in the water supply today, that was a possibility. I do not get that at all. I mean, I subscribe very hard to the theory and the philosophy that the next person that comes in is going to be not as good as Jim Harbaugh. And now I accidentally muted myself. This is part of the new setup. There might be some quirks, so we're working on that. Let me see if I can't make sure that everything is working right and on the right setting. It looks like it is. So if you're saying that the sound is cutting in and out. I wish I knew why that was causing it, because it looks like the microphone, everything is set on the right thing. I'll tell you what, when in doubt, just always try something different. So I'm going to try this and then switch back to the real mic, and hopefully we can get this sorted out. If anybody, feel free to pop back in if the sound is going back in and out again. We're trying to get that ironed out. We had that issue earlier today, and I thought we had it fixed, but your mileage may vary, as I say. I say, with the Ravens, that the likelihood is that your next coach is going to be a whole lot worse. And glad it sounds better. Excellent, Nikki. Stay with me there. If it starts cutting in and out again, let me know. Your next head coach in Baltimore, odds are, is going to be worse than Harbaugh. So you take a chance when you make a move in that direction. And I get, that there were some discussions that It was maybe either Harbaugh or Lamar Jackson, and Baltimore's kind of already thrown their lot in with Lamar. So if you can find a coach that can get the most out of Lamar and get the most out of the team, I mean, go for it. Like I said, the likelihood is that the next guy's going to be a whole lot worse than Harbaugh. It's going to be hard pressed to find somebody who's going to be better than Harbaugh. So we'll see how that works out for them. Just if you're a Chiefs fan, just cross your fingers that Harbaugh lands anywhere other than Las Vegas, because that would be the just worst case scenario. And now that really would be the group of death with the AFC West, with two Harbaughs, Sean Payton and Andy Reid. That would just be a nightmare scenario. So hopefully for Chiefs fans, Harbaugh will go to Atlanta or something like that, somewhere where he'll be far away from the AFC West. I think that's probably all I've got lined up right now for some opening monologue remarks. I know we've already got some super chats, so I'm going to go straight there right now. Dog Petter, would you trade McDuffie for Max Crosby? And I say this once again, I've been talking about the possibility of a Trent McDuffie trade. I love Trent McDuffie as a player and as a person. He's a great dude. I would make that trade in a heartbeat every day of the week and twice on Sunday. No knock against McDuffie, but that I would make that trade immediately. And I don't think the Raiders would. As a matter of fact, I think the Raiders would probably, give Max Crosby away to charity, trade him to Goodwill before they would ever trade him to Kansas City. So I'm assuming that's not even going to be a discussion. The price that the Chiefs would probably have to overpay to get Max Crosby would be significant. So I don't know if it's going to be something that's in the ballpark, dog. I mean, it would be great. I mean, and Max Crosby is somebody I would love to see in Kansas City, just because I want to see that dude play on a regular basis. That would be a lot of fun. He's a great player, and not just as a football talent, but just the way that he plays, I think is just amazing. And so I would love to be able to see that guy. If he gets traded in the offseason, and another NFL franchise is going to get to see him play, and more play fans, more the better. I mean, that's a guy that I think you just want to watch him play football. That's a really cool thing to see. So yes, that trade, I honestly would throw in McDuffie and some picks for that. I still don't think it will happen. Would be great for the Chiefs. That's exactly what they need, but I can't imagine that happening, dog. Like I said, as much as I think it would be exactly what the Chiefs need, honestly, I think they would be willing to pay it. I think they would do McDuffie plus for Crosby, but I can't imagine the Raiders. Like I said, I think the Raiders would ship him almost anywhere before they shipped him to Kansas City. So I just don't think it's going to happen, but you can dream. And if it does happen, count your lucky stars. No matter what it took to get Max Crosby. If it took Trent McDuffie, took him and Chris Jones and some picks, I mean, once again, don't think that's going to happen, but I think you would do just about anything to get Max Crosby on this team. He would be as our friend Nick Jacobs likes to talk about, a pillar. He would be a pillar and a difference maker on this team. Hannah with the super chat. Thank you very much. Hannah, if you're a regular and I just not recognizing you because the silly usernames are the way they're coming up to, but if you're first time, glad to have you here. Thank you very much and appreciate the super chat. Very kind of you. Thoughts on Cliff Kingsbury being the Chiefs' new OC, and if he proves himself, maybe takes the head coach job when Andy retires. P.S. I think Lamar needs an offensive head coach. I mean, I honestly just dealing with the Lamar thing, I could see that going in both directions. I could see the Ravens succeeding with a defensive-minded head coach. It's a defensive-minded team. It's they hang their hat on toughness. I could see them doing that and hiring just the right offensive mind for Lamar Jackson to try and get the most out of him. I think they could go either way. Now with Cliff Kingsbury, if you hadn't heard, he and the Washington Commanders have agreed to mutually part ways, which does make him a free agent. And while he doesn't have any professional ties to Andy Reid, obviously he has significant ties to Patrick Mahomes as his head coach in Texas Tech in college. I mean, this has been something that's been speculated in the past that if Cliff Kingsbury ever became available, and the Chiefs needed an offensive coordinator, would the fit be there? I mean, I think it's potentially there. How you don't discuss it, I think, I think you have to if you're the Chiefs and you have an opening at offensive coordinator, which we think is going to happen. We might discuss that more in depth later if the question comes up, but if the Chiefs need an offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury is available. I think you absolutely consider it. Would Cliff Kingsbury consider it? The conjecture out there is that he wants a head coaching job. That's why he wanted to be available and didn't necessarily want to come back to Washington. Is that he wanted to be available and look at some of these head coaching jobs that are out there. So if there's a soft feeling out there from him that there's a team that's interested, Cliff's going to go for the head coaching job. Uh, has there been speculation that maybe that's something that the Chiefs could offer, as a head coach in waiting kind of thing for an offensive coordinator, the right one, or for Cliff Kingsbury? Maybe. Again, I'm never a really big fan of those kind of situations, so I would always hesitate on the coach in waiting kind of situation, but as kind of a prove it situation, like you say there, Hannah, it's just coming in, and if it goes well as offensive coordinator, then you consider it when Andy retires. Yeah. Um, I mean, I can see some pluses and some minuses with Cliff Kingsbury. One obviously is that he would bring some different thoughts and theories to Kansas City. Obviously, he had a lot of success working with Patrick in the past as far as an offense goes. Um, I think that it would be an interesting time for him and Andy Reid to get together right now because Jason Anderson was pointing out today on Sports Radio 810 here in Kansas City. Maybe it might have been yesterday actually, but it was one of the last 2 days, all colliding in my head right now. But I mean, Cliff Kingsbury is the one coach in the NFL who probably runs more out of shotgun than Andy Reid does. So a lot of the things that maybe you didn't like about the Chiefs offense this year, Cliff Kingsbury does too. Now, get him the right running back. He had some really good running backs. They ran the ball effectively out of shotgun at Texas Tech, and he has run the ball effectively in the NFL at times out of shotgun with the right running backs, right situation, right play calling. So I don't think it would be a terrible fit. I think you absolutely consider it, Hannah. Truly, truly do. And your second super chat, appreciate that as well. We're in the dream roster talks with the Crosby trade, but it's not happening with cap issues, even with McDuffie trade. Use draft to get young pass rush. I mean, I will say this about the salary cap. As much as I do always usually point to the salary cap as being a reason why the Chiefs can't and don't get things done, there's certain times when you say that you can burn the salary cap. You can make things work if you have to in desperate times. Chiefs might be in desperate times to get somebody like Michael Max Crosby. I agree though. I mean it would be very difficult. I mean, it would be a difficult trade all around. I mean, one, the Raiders would have to eat some off that contract because he signed a new deal not that long ago. Um, the I'm I'm reading the comments and getting off my point, hand. I apologize for that. Yes, I mean, it would be a cap problem. Honestly, I think more for the Raiders and for the Chiefs with what some of the cost that the Raiders would have to eat. They don't want to give up Max Crosby. I know they don't want to. Um, you're the Chiefs, even with McDuffie. I think you'd have to throw in some picks, and you've got 5 needs. And honestly, if you trade McDuffie, now you've got 6 needs. So you've got a lot of things that you need to address. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan necessarily of sacrificing a lot of draft picks to get something like that done. It would, and once at some point you're gonna have to pay Max Crosby too, and he's gonna make a lot of money, a lot more than Trent McDuffie's gonna make. It's a dream. I mean, it really is. It's I can't see it happening for so many reasons, but it's kind of fun to talk about because Max Crosby would be a difference maker. And yes, please hit the like button if you don't mind. Appreciate Nikki reminding me to put in the plug there. Let's go to Luttrell. If KC were to pursue Cliff, would the offer need to include an implicit understanding he's the eventual successor for him to consider it? Again, it might. I mean, if that's what Cliff's his departure from Washington was because he wants to be a head coach. I mean, one, probably going to take a head coaching job right before he takes an offensive coordinator job. And if he takes a coordinator job, it probably is with the understanding that he wants to be the head coach one day. So, like I said, I'm never big on those coach and waiting deals, even if they're private and behind the scenes and they're not known. But I think it would absolutely take something like that, lateral. And the second part, Andy obviously isn't going anywhere, but if KC was hiring a head coach, who would you want them to pursue this offseason? Oh, well, now it's John Harbaugh. I mean, if Andy Reid called up Clark Hunt tomorrow and said, "Hey, you know what? I decided just don't have it in me anymore, dog. I'm calling it quits." You call John Harbaugh right freaking now. So that's what I would do. I mean, maybe you should just go ahead and consider Steve Spagnuolo and Matt Nagy. That would probably be the smart thing to do. It would probably be what one or both. I mean, keeping both those guys would probably be what keeps your quarterback happy and keep a lot of other people happy. John Harbaugh's just a really good coach, so I would do that in a heartbeat. But you would have three good candidates there in John Harbaugh, Matt Nagy, and Steve Spagnuolo, and I think you probably wouldn't go wrong with any of them. Chris, who is your prime candidate to replace Nagy if he goes? I mean, Andy Reid really only mentioned one name yesterday as amongst the internal candidates, and that's Joe Blameyer, and I think he would be a candidate. I think Matt Nagy would absolutely be a candidate. And beyond that, I mean, I think everybody else, Cliff Kingsbury, I think should be a candidate, probably would be a candidate. Remember, though, I mean, and I go back to with Kingsbury, with all of the logistics. I mean, by all accounts, he was one of, if not the highest paid coordinator in the league the past year, supposedly about $10 million. You're not walking away from that job, even mutually, if the Commanders, and certainly the way that has been pitched is that it sounded like it was certainly more Cliff's decision to leave than the Commanders' decision and Dan Quinn's decision to walk away. Maybe it was more Dan Quinn's decision. Usually these things are not mutual, even when both sides say it. But you're not walking away from that job unless, I think, if you're Cliff Kingsbury, unless you think you're a prime candidate for somebody. And like I said, maybe interest has been expressed through back channels that you might be the target for another club to be their head coach. So I don't know if he's going to be that, but and then it's really going to be hard to, I think, identify offensive coordinator candidates because Andy Reid has traditionally, as offensive coordinators for his coordinator positions, has gone to players, or excuse me, to coaches that he has a relationship with. So I don't I don't know if he's going to be that serious a candidate. He should be considered. Like I said, I just don't know if he's would consider the Chiefs that much. Arrowhead Corner. So Matt wanted to put the ABBA 8. Clearly a Sports Radio 810 listener. I mean, I can't explain it, and I don't hate ABBA. I mean, if they come on, I'm not. And there's some ABBA songs that are nice songs, not a problem. And honestly, some of their individual solo work, Frida and Agnetha Falskog, I can't remember how to pronounce all their names, but some of their solo work and work after ABBA, love that. And so, like I said, some of their individual songs are fine, but when it comes to Swedish pop, I am much more Roxette, Real McCoy. Gosh, there's another one that was out there. Who was it? There's another like 90s Swedish pop band. And I'm a sucker for 90s Swedish pop. That's a problem. I'll admit it. 70s Swedish pop, not entirely my jam. 90s Swedish pop, that's me. So just, I'll admit it. It's a weakness. Let's see. Imsel. Pass rush should be top of the list. And would you bring back any of the free agent DNs? Dominique might be stronger after another year from the ACL. My only real concern with Minihue is that he should have been better this year from the MCL. I mean, as far out as he is now, I mean, this should have been the bounce back year, and we didn't see it. And so now I'm trying to remember. I think this a Minihue's 29 year. I want to say it was. Maybe next year is 29. Yeah, next year will be his age 29 season. That's getting to be the cutoff to me. And if you're age 28 and your ACL at 26 hasn't really come back yet, that's a problem. That's a concern for me. So I probably wouldn't. And I think the Chiefs are going to have. That's the one area that I think you can bank that the Chiefs are going to have some pretty significant turnover. I think they're going to be walking on a lot of their free agents on the defensive line. Maybe, I know they got another year of Mike Dana. Believe they got another year of Mike Dana on that contract. Even with Mike, I mean, once again, you're starting to get into that age 30 kind of category. And with Mike, he's got a pretty big cap number for this last year. So it's one of those option years in the deal for him. You only have 2.2 million dollars in dead cap money with Mike Dana against a cap number of 11.2. So, you can save essentially $9 million. Once again, I like Mike Dana. I think he's a great teammate, but you need the Chiefs this offseason. Their motto is going to be younger, faster, cheaper. And Mike Dana doesn't really do any of those things for you. I like Mike Dana. He is I obviously I think he's a better run defender than a pass rusher. He obviously has a lot of flexibility, which they love. There's a lot to like about Mike Dana, and if this was his final year and you don't extend him beyond this into his 30s, then I'm fine. I mean, that makes sense. But I think there's going to be a lot of turnover on a defensive line, and yeah, I would imagine Omenihu will not be back because I think that the Chiefs are going to try to turn over that defensive front significantly. Yeah, Arrowhead. How do you think the style with Cliff Kingsbury would blend with Andy Reid's approach? Like I said, I mean, I think that in many ways, even though Cliff Kingsbury isn't the Andy Reid disciple in any way, their their styles are complementary. They're a little bit different. Obviously, Kingsbury's more of the spread approach, so he's got a little bit different philosophy, especially offensive line blocking. Wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing as far as that goes, but could their styles mesh? Yeah, I mean, and like I said, to a certain degree, those air raid concepts, a lot of them, aren't totally dissimilar from the West Coast concepts. They're a little bit less disciplined, I think. I mean, the West Coast is a little bit more formulaic and, based on just, it's more complicated. I mean, if anything, I think that the knock, whether it's fair or not, on the air raid offense is that it's just that it's a more simplicated offense. It's not very complicated. It's very simple concepts. And there's used to be a joke, Texas Tech only had 4 plays. I mean, no, it's not the case. It's a lot more complicated than that. But probably is fairly true that they didn't have very many run plays. I mean, they did run the football a lot, but there weren't a lot of runs. But they're once again, I mean, they're out of shotgun runs. Not a Cliff Kingsbury doesn't have a lot of under center plays. Is that a problem in today's NFL? Could be. I mean, even though his quarterback got hurt this year, so there's not a lot of judgment there. At the same time, Cliff's offenses in the NFL haven't set the world on fire. Nothing like what he did in Texas, at Texas Tech. So, is it just a matter of not having his quarterback? Could he set the world on fire if he had Patrick Mahomes back as his quarterback? Maybe. So I don't think that the styles would mesh dramatically. I mean, I think they could fit together. I mean, if that's something that ends up happening, I don't think it would be a contrast in styles. Like I was saying earlier today, the Venn diagram of Andy Reid and Cliff Kingsbury it's not a complete circle, but it's a lot of crossover. Hannah, yeah. If Harbaugh ends up with the Giants, that'd be a great hire. Stefanski, it would be interesting with Stefanski in Baltimore. I mean, all my problems with Kevin Stefanski honestly have nothing to do with Kevin Stefanski and everything to do with the fact that he's been NFL Coach of the Year twice for not really deserving NFL Coach of the Year. It's not his fault he was given that award. And I feel bad for the guy for what Cleveland did to him. They just absolutely hamstrung him with that Deshaun Watson contract. So, Nikki, are Lamar's best years behind him? He's hurt so much, not running so much this year. Um, you know, I think you could probably make that compelling point that maybe they are, for quarterbacks like Lamar, who are as mobile as he is. I mean, age is always going to catch up to you. Injuries are always going to catch up with you eventually. And where is Lamar? 29. So next year will be his age 30 season. He turns 30 here in a couple of days. It's to me, I mean, I respect the whole game out of Lamar. I think he's a much better passer than he usually gets credit for. I'm not entirely, with the offensive concepts, he's had to bounce around a little bit in some offenses in Baltimore, so I don't think that has necessarily always done him any favors. Um, I think I still feel like there's good football in Lamar, and I still feel like he can be a quarterback that ages somewhat gradually, that can lean more on his passing game as he gets older and can't run as much, and maybe it just isn't as fast and isn't as strong as he once was. But it's still gonna be hard for him. So that may be maybe you are at that apex right now where maybe Lamar is getting, if he's not at his peak, maybe he's close to it, and he's going to have to start adapting. His coaches are going to have to start adapting to the kind of quarterback he is now, and he's going to be going forward. I mean, I still think he's a good quarterback, a great quarterback, one of the best in the AFC, uh, and I still think there's a lot you can get out of him. Are his best years behind him? I think it's a legitimately fair question, Nikki, just because of being the kind of quarterback and the style of quarterback that he is. It's not, the run aspect is not going to be as easy as that has been for him going forward. Can he make that adjustment? I think he can, but is he going to be a guy that's playing until 38, 40? I don't think so. So, are you talking about maybe the next 6 or 7 years as being what's left in Lamar, and that's if he makes the transition? Possibly. And like I said, I mean, I think he's a good enough athlete and has a strong enough arm that and a good enough decision maker. I think he can make that transition. So we'll just see if he can pull it off. Paz is my bezzy. Spag said earlier last week he would look around the league to see what other teams are doing concept wise. Do you think Andy will do the same? Can you ask him next presser? Yeah, I feel like he hasn't been asked that specific question. So I think that is a fair question. I'll definitely put it on the list of things to bring up and and ask him sometime. But I do know that he does that. Now, has the Chiefs offense shown as much of that in recent years? I'm not sure that it has, and that's why I think it is a fair question. But no, I mean, I know from talking to from Andy in the past, and players, coaches, all the same, that they do at the end of the season. I mean, the first thing that they're doing is they're evaluating themselves. They're taking a look at what they did, what worked, what didn't, what was their most successful concepts, what were their least successful. Why did they fail? Was it personnel? Was it execution? Was it coaching, skill? You name it. And honestly, and he's kind of talked about this a little bit as far as when he's been asked about scheme and concepts, and how much turnover you have from year to year. The Chiefs have not had as much turnover in game plan and scheme the last few years as they have had in some years. It's not, they haven't had like a reboot year like they did when they were going from Alex to Patrick. I think even in some of the Mahomes years, I think that they had some bigger turnover years where they added new concepts and did some things differently. Especially when they lost Tyreek and did things a little bit differently. Um, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, one of the things that they have to do is that they have to adjust to the times. And that's, to me, adjusting to the times means two things. One is that it does mean looking around the league, see how the league has evolved. Um, it's a different game. Honestly, it's called differently. The defenses are playing different or different skills than even it was 5 years ago. I mean, we have seen a pendulum swing from where offenses were just absolutely dominating to defenses have caught up, and now you've got to make that counter. And I don't believe that the Chiefs have been successful as some other teams in countering what defenses are doing to them around the league. And so, yeah, you do. I mean, And it's to me, it's not even about looking at what other teams are doing offensively, although I think you absolutely have to do that. I think it's a lot more about the Chiefs have to look at how defenses are responding to them and then make the counter. And I feel like that they did that in the past well. Go back to when, they lost that AFC Championship game to the Bengals, and, the Bengals really put on a clinic about how to stop the Chiefs. And the Chiefs knew going back into 2022 that they were just gonna see everything that the Bengals did to them in that AFC Championship game. They were gonna see that every single week the following season. And majority of their offensive changes in 22 was really countering what the Bengals did to them in the AFC Championship game, making sure that they had answers. And they did that. What I feel like that they failed this year was that they did not look enough at what the Eagles did to them in the Super Bowl and make those adjustments. That they haven't looked around the league and seen what defenses are doing to take away the passing game, to limit all of this. They didn't look at how they got dismantled by Vic Fangio in the Super Bowl against the Eagles and designed their offense to counter that, because they saw all of that this year. They saw teams going to school on what the Eagles did. And that's a big chunk of what the I think the Chiefs' problems were this year, that they had a game plan to tell them how to fix address some of their flaws, and they didn't do it this year. So, I mean, they have to now. There's no doubt. I mean, they have to address this. They can't just go forward. And so, like I said, I think that some of that, Paz, is figuring out what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, changing that, seeing what defenses are doing and adjusting to that. And sure, I mean, we're looking around the league and seeing what concepts work and what don't. I mean, now there's things like, hey, uh, you can look at some of the things like the Rams do, but if you don't have the tight ends and Puka, you're not going to be able to do some of the things that the Rams do. I mean, that's just the reality. But maybe that means that you need to be looking for some different players with some different talents that can do some different things for you. So I think it's a great question, and I will be glad to add that to my list, Paz, and hopefully can get it in here sometime soon. Uh, let's see. I was looking at. I was reading your Crosby Adam Banks comparison there, Luttrell. That's anytime you get a Mighty Ducks comparison, then I'm all for that. Chris, back in September, I asked you that with the fifth selection in the 2026 the NFL draft select, I wasn't far off with that. No, I mean, Chris, you weren't far off with that. Just four picks off. I don't remember what I said. I hope I said edge rusher, because if I did, then that makes me a genius, and it's what I should have said, because it's still what the Chiefs' biggest need was back in 20 September of 2025. So hopefully that's what I said. If not, that's what I'm saying for now for sure. Um, they need some pass rush help, and get a first round pick. That's a good place to get it. Nikki, hasn't Patrick moved past his college coach? That's an interesting question, and I would say there's two sides of it. One, sure, he has, but they still seem to have a great relationship, and relationship with a coach can go a long way towards just how you work with a coach. So that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. As far as the concepts and the skill, yeah, I mean he has, but if there's things that maybe Kingsbury knows about Patrick from working with him in the past, and knows how to get the best out of him, or sees things in Patrick that maybe he used to do that he's not doing as much anymore, because I don't think there's any doubt that, I mean, I'm not smart enough to articulate it, but I watch Patrick and I feel like that there's things that Patrick's doing right now, just habit wise, on the field, that's not identical to what he used to do. I feel like he's gotten away from some things. So has he gotten away from good things that he used to do that he's not doing now? Or were they these things just technique cleanups that maybe were the right things to do, but maybe have affected him in some way? I mean, that's where having a former coach coming in, to look at you again and see where you've changed and evolved, maybe can point out where you've made some changes that are good or bad. So moved on, moved past. maybe yes and maybe no. But that's why. I mean, I do think that there's some upsides and downsides to it. I mean, it's how critical would Cliff Kingsbury be to Patrick? I mean, if they had a critical relationship, and I don't mean adversarial, but a relationship where Cliff was comfortable being critical with Patrick and Patrick was receptive to that, and they can continue to still have that, that would be a plus. But if Cliff would just be a reinforcement for Patrick with the things that he does, and not really a sounding board in any way, then it wouldn't be great. But he obviously performed quite well with him in the past. So like I said, for that reason alone, I think it's worth the conversation and exploration. Doesn't mean it's the right decision, but like I said, I would certainly consider it. Alex, is Eric's interest real in coming back to KC? How about KC's interest in bringing him back? Um, I don't know, Alex. I really don't. I wasn't aware if EB has expressed anything as far as wanting to come back to KC. I'm sure it's probably come up. I'm doing a quick search to see if there's like anything news wise that said that he would like coming back. I mean, I'm sure if at some point he's probably said that, because you're always going to try and keep your options open. Um, I would assume that there would be more interest from the EB side of coming back to KC than there would be KC interest in bringing him back. I'm not saying that it was an adversarial parting of the ways. It was not. I mean, this team loves EB, and I think there's still a lot of respect for him. Did did things end great between the two sides? No, I mean there was some friction there. And that's why I say, I mean, it wasn't like Kareem Hunt friction. And again, if the Chiefs and Kareem can get back on the same page and welcome Kareem back, then anything can happen. So I'm never going to say never with the Chiefs and anybody. But I do think that if you brought EB back, as the offensive coordinator, there would have to be some probably addressing things that were happened in the past. And like I said, I've got no reason to believe that there was anything that was groundbreaking or earth shattering that would keep these two sides from getting along. But there were some frustrations, at the end of the EB tenure and everything. Not everything was as hunky dory as everybody, kind of chooses to remember. I mean, there was some back and forth and everything, and obviously, EB had some up and down relationships with everybody. He was up and down with Kelsey. He was up and down with Tyreek. He was up and down with Patrick. Um, I think sometimes good coaches have that, though. I mean, there's sometimes that and EB is one of these guys. EB is one of these coaches that I think most players really, really love. There's going to be a few players who don't jive with him at all. And there's going to be a few players who don't jive with him, but they need a guy like that. They need somebody to push them, and he that knows how to push their buttons, and EB's that guy. So, like I said, I feel like that the interest would be more on the EB side than the KC side. I don't think it would be impossible to get these two sides back. I'm just not sure at the same time that even if you did, I just don't know if it solves all your problems. It might be that you need an Eric Bieniemy type. I'm just not sure if you need Eric Bieniemy. Although, I mean, if the Chiefs hired Eric Bieniemy as their running backs coach, and I mean, it's very difficult. I'm assuming he's got a multi-year deal with Chicago, so bringing him in as a running backs coach is almost impossible unless his contract is up. But I would hire Eric Bieniemy as a running backs coach anytime, any situation, any team. But coming back to Kansas City, I think it would be hard for both sides, and I do think that there had to be a little fence mending before it got done. Chris, if you were the Ravens, would you have fired Harbaugh if the Bills lose this weekend? Does he end up there? I mean, that's another really good question, Chris. Is that if you're the Bills and you flame out early in this playoff run, I mean, there's no other quarterbacks left. I understand, I get that the Bills have not been perfect this season. They've got some flaws, but I mean, this AFC playoff is built for them. I mean, if they can't run the table this year in this playoff, I don't know when they're going to. I mean, it is set up for Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the best quarterback left in the playoffs. I personally feel on either side, either conference, but certainly in the AFC. I mean, it's built for him. So if they don't get there, do they continue the stick with McDermott? I mean, it would certainly be a. We've seen it. I mean, the Ravens are doing it. I mean, I guess nobody's ever convinced that Mike Tomlin is safe year to year in Pittsburgh. Um, McDermott's been on the hot seat before. It's really interesting. I mean, if the Bills fired Sean McDermott, once again, Harbaugh's the first guy I would call. I would call him for. I mean, he would be the first call for anybody with a head coach opening right now. I mean, he's the best head coach I think that's available. So yes, that's who I would call. That would be a good place. I mean, be a better situation for him for sure. I mean, he got a quarterback that I think he can work with, and a lot to do, a lot of things going on there. A lot, I don't. If all that's missing in Buffalo is a change in voice, I mean, Harbaugh's would be a good voice to have there. So I wouldn't. That would be scary to me. I mean, so Chris, I would probably say yes. If you're the Bills, and you are desperate enough that you think that you have to replace McDermott, Harbaugh is the only reason why you would do that in my book. So, going back over to Hannah with another super chat. Thank you very much. Could team be more open to EB coming back, given part of the issues this year was the lack of execution, attention to detail, and EB was known for being detailed? I mean, I personally do buy into that, Hannah. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily be Eric Bieniemy, and this is not a knock against other coaches, saying that there's coaches on this team that don't have attention to detail. They do. I mean, Matt Nagy is extreme, but and I'm not saying that they're not all loud, but nobody on this offensive coaching staff that I've witnessed has uh, the authority, let's say, that Eric Bieniemy carries with him to stress those details and that execution. That he is he has a high accountability gene. I guess we'll put it that way when it comes to on the field and motivation. I mean, that's his X factor. I do think, and what people would always say about Eric Bieniemy is that he got undersold on the X's and O's. That he was a much better X's and O's coach than people gave him credit for, because he was seen as a motivator, and he's a really good motivator. I mean, clearly, he's one of the best in the biz, and that's probably a better way to discuss it and to stress it. Is that I think it's more about motivation than it is about the attention to detail and execution, because I think if you don't have that in the NFL, I don't think you're going to succeed. You have to have that. It's what else do you bring to the table? That are you an expert and technician? Are you a, a, a an expert play caller? Are you an expert in building a scheme? Are you a true teacher? Are you just a outstanding coach in one particular aspect, whether it's secondary, linebacker, the offensive line, whatever it may be? I mean, I think you have to have execution and attention to detail as a skill set, but then it's like, what else do you have? Well, EB's got, I think, a couple of there. Like I said, I mean, I think Eric Bieniemy is without a doubt the best running backs coach in the NFL. So I've got, I mean, that's his skill set. There's no doubt. I mean, you look at the numbers. The Chiefs' run game with Eric Bieniemy was top notch. It's better than it is now. So I think you'd have to give EB high marks in that area of being able to put together a winning game plan when it comes to the run. And you see what Chicago has been able to do this year. They've had a lot of success running the football, and I think you have to give EB credit for that. So, yeah, I think that they could be open to it, Hannah, simply because, yes, I think that they do need someone like EB. And like I said, I could also see the powers that be within 1 Arrowhead Drive saying, you know what, we really need an Eric Bieniemy type. But at the same time, not saying, "Hey, we should call Eric Bieniemy because we need him." That's where I think there could be just a small distinction. Scott, what's your thoughts on Bob Fesco's report today on the Fan about Mahomes possibly asking for a trade if the Chiefs don't fix the situation? I'm never going to I haven't heard, so I don't know. I'm assuming you're presenting it, Scott. I'm sounding like Andy Reid yesterday when I asked him a question about the NFL Network report about the substantial reboot. I'm assuming that Bob said that and everything. I don't know if he was reporting it or speculating on it. I've not heard anything of that nature. Um, is it possible? Somebody saying that? Entirely possible. Uh, I I I can't say it because I can't. I've not had anybody say anything like that to me. So that's about the best I can tell you, Scott. Um, Casey Harold, Matt, has Borgonzi contacted you about doing Titans Digest? Don't want them poaching you. No, I think Mike. I think Mike's fine in Nashville without me. So haven't talked to him in a while, so I hope he's doing well. But no, he has not reached out saying he needs me there. So you're all stuck with me. Um, Repositioning and doing some different things with the camera here, Jackie. So hopefully it works out. Hopefully the microphone's holding in there. Um, we'll, we'll see what we can do here, Jackie. But hopefully we're moving in the right direction with some upgrades for 2026. Chiefs Nation, what do you think of Nick Singleton out of Penn State? He is big and fast. Oh, all of you asking me about draft picks yet, and man, I am just not there yet. I can talk somewhat intelligently about some players, and if they went to Mizzou, maybe if they're top 15, top 20 kind of pick right now. I'm just getting into all of that. Um, Running backs outside of Jeremiah Love and the other kid from Notre Dame whose name I can't remember. I'm not well versed in right now. I will say, I mean, here's at least my quick observations about the draft and and defensive end, pass rusher, defensive tackle, pass rusher, and running back. Since I have looked at least I've sketched out what that group looks like and everything. Here's my scary thing about them is just that outside of Love, it's matching up production with what you see on TV, what you see on the field and everything. There's a lot of players look like explosive players that it's just like, okay, why didn't you put up bigger numbers? And there's a handful that did. I mean, so I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, there's a few guys that are absolutely, aces with, being first round picks and everything like that do have the production and and the skill set. But I mean, this is the thing. I there's a handful of people that I trust that I lean on for draft advice that I feel like that they are really good at what they do. And so far, what I'm hearing from them, because they spend all season long for the most part looking at these things, and what I'm hearing from them so far is just that there's fewer first round picks this year than normal. And again, there's a disconnect between the production and the talent in this year's class. That this might just be a class that's, it's a down year. Now we hear that periodically, and sometimes it pans out, and sometimes it doesn't. I know there's, depends on who you talk to, will tell you whether or not you think that this is a very robust quarterback draft. Most of the people I've heard from don't think that it is. That even the quarterbacks that are at the top of the draft have question marks because maybe they feel like that they're system players. They're really good at what they do in college because they're college offenses, but doesn't mean that they're going to translate to the NFL. Then there's some players that they look like they've got it all. I mean, I'll admit, I mean, I saw Ty Simmons in that game against Mizzou, and he made some NFL throws. He also did some things in that game that did not look like NFL ready. So there's going to be some. This is going to be an interesting draft, and sometimes we say this. Oh, we say this in January, and then by the time you get to March, everybody is calmed down. They've gone through the combine, and they're like, no, you know what? No problem. There's easily 15 to 20 first round picks in this draft, and there's more quarterbacks than you thought, and it's all going to be there. Running back is, like I said, is one of those spots where I look at it and I'm like, gosh, there looks like there's some guys with talent, but it's like, why didn't they put up more numbers? Or these guys put up some numbers, but just doesn't look like they got the skill set. So it'll be interesting, especially for the Chiefs, because I think they're going to end up addressing running back at least a couple of times this year. Maybe a draft pick and a free agent would not surprise me. Scott, are the rumors true that the Chiefs front office and the coaching staff are on different pages and toxic right now? If that's a huge problem, again, Scott, I haven't heard that rumor. I haven't heard anything like it, so I can't speak to whether some others have heard that and it's going around or anything like that. I haven't seen necessarily any evidence of that either. Normally if there's a situation like that, it'd be going around the building and you would be hearing about it. So I can't say. If I had some people telling me that, Scott, I would definitely share it, but I have not heard that. So maybe some people just aren't venting to me. Who knows? But I haven't heard a couple of these things. And you know what? I mean, here's the other thing is that sometimes these things pop up when things aren't going well. Maybe those issues aren't there, but maybe the rumors are there. And sometimes there are toxic problems and there's people who are complaining about them. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, the people complaining about the toxic problems are the problem themselves. And sometimes there's addition through subtraction. So sometimes if there's somebody in the organization that's a malcontent and they leave, that alone can solve a lot of the problems. And once again, no evidence, that nothing's been told to me to suggest that's going on in Kansas City. But if I'd heard some things like that, I would definitely find a way to sneak it to you and share it, Scott. So don't worry. Yes, Harbaugh is going to make somebody really happy. You know what? Kevin Stefanski might make somebody happy. Matthew looks like he would prefer Kevin Stefanski over Harbaugh. Uh, Younger, there's some reason why. I mean, would not have any. I would call Harbaugh no matter what. He'd been my number one call. But if somebody else wants to call Kevin Stefanski first, it's legitimate case. You can build the case. Audra, thank you for weighing in that you love some ABBA. I saw that. Oh, let's see. I think we have two more super chats now. Let's go over. Oh, Hannah, yes, back. You got another one there, Hannah. Could the team be more? Oh, I guess I already answered that one. There we go. Sorry. Luttrell had the one when the was a member chat there. I thought it was a trade down the road, but not necessarily next season. Well, you never know. And Jesus, when did you post this? 8:05, baby. All right, this is the highlight of my day. I got a Jesus super chat on time. Can you describe the perfect defensive end for the Chiefs? Can you list your top 5 pass rushers in the league that the Chiefs can try to sign? Oh man, Jesus, you ask a bold question here, and I'm going to do my best for you to answer it because you deserve it after all of your super chat challenges in the past. I mean, what honestly, I would say close. I'm trying to describe a Chiefs Brett Veach, Steve Spagnuolo edge rusher, and not saying just go watch Frank Clark when he didn't have stomach problems and was injury free, because that's pretty much who the Chiefs would I think would view as their prototypical edge rusher. Kind of Frank Karlaftis kind of meld a little bit. Maybe you put the two of them together and everything. I would say, without looking, because I'm trying to remember, I want to say Frank Clark was about 6'6", 265 at his heaviest. I know, gosh, when he was sick and he lost some weight, I think he was down to like 245 at one point. And that's not the Frank Clark that you want. No, that's you want beefier Frank Clark than that. So, what was at the at the combine? Oh my gosh, Frank Clark was. How was I taller than Frank Clark? I always felt like I was looking up to Frank Clark. He was 6'3", 271 at the combine, 34 and 3/8 inch arms. That's close. I mean, I would say I'd put 2.5 inches on Frank Clark, maybe at least 2 inches. So let's get him to 6'5". 271 would be a good number. Like I said, maybe even 265. I think Karlaftis is a little bit bigger than that. Arm length, I mean, you'd love like 36 inches, 35 at least. I mean, just maybe like in Frank's case, about maybe 3/4 of an inch longer. So give me 6'5", 265, minimum 35-inch arm length would be great. And Frank had 19 reps on the bench press. I'd probably want 20 to 25 at least. That'd be a good number. I'm probably, here describing like an all pro. I mean, I'm probably, but I mean, that's who the Chiefs would want. I mean, they want height, they want length, they want weight, but not too much weight. They want speed, they want strength, they want a blend of a little bit of everything. And there's no doubt. I mean, that's a little bit more towards the Spags wish for a defensive end. I mean, Spags would like to have as much length as possible. So I say 6'5", 35-inch arms. Spags would probably say at least 6'6" with like 36-inch arms would be what he wants. So now, who's out there that's going to be free agents that the Chiefs would be interested in this year? That is always tricky. And I'm going to go through because I'll say one thing that, I mean, the Chiefs are going to have to be affordable. I mean, they're not just going to be able to go out there and sign the most expensive guys out there. And they're certainly not going to go on age. So do I think that the Chiefs are going to sign Trey Hendrickson or a Khalil Mack? Those guys are potential free agents. I don't think Hassan Reddick is exactly their style either. Joey Bosa is going to be a free agent. I mean, he's on the wrong side of the age-wise, and the injury history is a problem, so that would be maybe an issue. I'll tell you what, I mean, the first name that comes up that was really intriguing because there's some guys on here that I think, are like, well, those are injury issues. Gosh, I go through this and that's the thing with edge rushers is that so many of them, they're off the market. I mean, they're the best players that you can find don't make it to free agency. The guys who do, I mean, there's a reason why that they're making it to free agency. So, guys are jumping out to me. Draymond Jones from the Ravens is a possibility. Arden Key was a possibility last year. The Chiefs passed on, but it sounded like that they were interested, but maybe he was just too much last year, and I think he's going to be more this year, so that might not be great. AJ Epinesa, maybe in that ballpark as well. Osai from the Bengals would be, interesting. Gosh, Quiddy Payne going to be pricey, but that might be what you'd have to pay for to get a guy like that. But I'm looking at Quiddy Spotrac has his like market value at 17.7, and that I could go for. I mean, I'm not paying Trey Hendrickson at age 32 the kind of money that he's probably going to want. And like I said, Arden Key signed last year for 7. They've got his value at 13. I mean, if you didn't go for Arden Key at 7, you're not going to go for him at 13. I feel like Bosa age and injury history, like I said, is just a little bit too much. I mean, the Chiefs that you're looking for, and probably where you need to be thinking about is, who are those guys coming off their first contracts that maybe just underperformed. What you're looking for essentially is Charles Omenihu. You're looking for a guy that's 4 years in the league that maybe, has had some moments here and there, but just hasn't broken out yet. So, that and like I said, these guys are tough to find because, you just look around the league and everything, and anybody that's got, a fair amount of production is already signed up. And, and obviously, hey, Josh Uche, is going to be affordable free agent. Chiefs already went down that road, and that's The type of player that they can't sign. They can't be signing and going after guys that aren't going to fit what Steve Spagnuolo wants to do. So you can't be going out and getting 3, 4 linebackers. Um, Honestly, I mean that's probably where my regrets with Leo Chanel are going to come down is that I think Leo is going to go, and if he gets signed into a 3-4 system, Leo Chanel might be a Pro Bowler. Might end up being an All Pro for crying out loud. He's a really good player. I really like him. I mean, it was just that he has been I think a tough fit into the Chiefs defense. I mean, I think it speaks volumes for just how good of a player he is, that I think that he is a really, really good 3-4 linebacker that found a home in the Chiefs 4-3. But I think he might end up going to a 3-4 and just being a star for somebody. I hope it's not like the Eagles. I mean, that would be a real bummer, but it could happen, Jesus. So, um, I that's the thing. I mean, and that's why this draft is going to be so important, especially that first pick, because and why pass rusher is probably the direction to lean there, because you're just not going to get what you want in an edge rusher on the open market. I mean, you might with a trade, but again, I don't know if you want to be giving up your first round pick, that high for somebody else's player. I think you need to be developing your own so that you've got an affordable edge rusher for the next 5 years and somebody that can help you out at an affordable rate, because hey, Frank Clark helped them get over the precipice. He got them to the promised land, but you're not trying to do that anymore. Now you're trying to stay where you were. And with that, you need production and you need affordability. You need people to save you some money. Brother Rick, Brashard Smith may be next Jet McKinnon. And any update on BJ? I did leave a message trying to find out about BJ. So working on it, Brother Rick, working on it. Brashard Smith, if he turns into the next Jet McKinnon, I would be ecstatic. I really liked what we saw on Sunday. Again, they gave him a little bit more inside runs than I expected, and obviously all of the pieces aren't there yet. And there's a lot of things that I think that they could do with Rashard Smith that just aren't in their offense right now, that they could do going forward. And there's some things with McKinnon that they could pull back out. The only thing that really disappointed me on Sunday was Brashard had a bad day catching the football. That's something that he's normally been pretty good at. So I know there was one ball that wasn't a great throw, so I won't put that one on him. But he did have one bad drop that was just taken off without the ball, and you can't do that. Got to be more patient than that. He's got a lot of work before he could do what Jet McKinnon did, which is just have the ability to bust out of the backfield and find open spots. I mean, that's what Jet did for the Chiefs isn't something that most guys just coming out of the draft can do. I mean, it takes them 7 years to figure out. That was what Jet was when he was in Kansas City. I mean, he was an 8-year vet, so he'd had a long time to learn that skill. I mean, right now, I mean, I keep coming into my comp for him might end up being Dexter McCluster, because I think the Chiefs are going to try and fit him in a little bit more at wide receiver next year. I don't even know if he's going to be a running back next year. I kind of hope that he will, because I think that they need him. I don't know if they're going to be able to get 2 new pieces into that backfield that are going to be better than Rashard Smith. And you watch what he did in college, and if he could find a way to bring that to this level, that's an explosive running back, and he can do a lot of things for you. And he can catch the football normally. And I mean, he was just nails catching the football in training camp. That's why I was really surprised to see him have some issues during the season and on Sunday with some drops, because I think he's a better pass catcher than that. But I think it was Andy Reid when he was asked last week about Brashard Smith's future and whether it was at running back or wide receiver, and he said both. And I'll be honest, I didn't like that answer, because I do think that there's a lot of upside for him as a running back. But if he moves to a wide receiver, like I said, I mean, I feel like Dexter McCluster might be your comp. I mean, it's probably a comp, between him and DeAnthony Thomas might be the ceiling there. and it's not bad. I mean, those are good players, so I wouldn't object to him becoming that. But would you like him to become Jerick McKinnon? Sure, that would be great. But I just, based on what we saw in year one, I can't make that comp quite yet. So, but appreciate the super chat, brother Rick, Jesus, Hannah, all of you. Truly appreciate it. Thank you very much. And as always, when I do see them, you do move to the top of the line, as I've proven with Jesus. Finally, you do get to move to the top of the line with the super chat when I'm doing my job correctly. Oh no, I mean, and there had totally. I do not enjoy 70s disco music. Do not. I mean, do not. It is terrible. There is no good disco music. So that's almost entirely true. There might be a couple that I can put up with, but not really much. Chiefs comments: is it reasonable to be skeptical we can get more for McDuffie than you got for Peters? I know Marcus Peters was a headache, but he was a more productive cornerback at the time. Seems unlikely the Chiefs can get a first. I will agree with that statement. Chiefs comments. I think it would be difficult to get a first for McDuffie, and unless it's part of a bigger deal, and and you're maybe throwing a pick back in it to get a pick back. Marcus Peters, I'm trying to remember. I think it was what you got a. Was it a third and a fifth or a second and a fifth? My old age, and that was, well, that was even worse, wasn't it? Gosh, I'm looking back on it. That was a fourth and a. Gosh, and they got a fourth and they had to ship a sixth. Okay, you're gonna get better return than that, because I mean, even though Peters was productive and everything, Marcus Peters was a head case. There was an okay. So okay, the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for a fourth round pick in the 2018. A second, okay, it was a second and a fourth, and the Chiefs put a sixth. So second and a fourth. Honestly, that I think would be max value for Trent McDuffie. I mean, a second and a fourth. I think you should be able to get that, but only right now. I mean, if you hold on to McDuffie and you wait until next offseason, not sure you can do that. Then, I think you're probably kind of falling a little bit more into L'Jarius Sneed category. And he should get more than LaSneed did, because remember, Sneed was 27, bad knees, all of this. So I think you should be able to get more than that a year from now for McDuffie. But he's going to have his most value right now when he still has that fifth-year option. It's a little bit more affordable. Obviously, if a team's acquiring him and they can't get something done, then they've got the franchise tag, so they can at least have some team control aspect to it. But yeah, I mean, a second and a fourth without having to send a sixth back, I think that would be top value. I mean, to me, and maybe it would depend a little bit on where the second is and everything. But yeah, I feel like for the Chiefs, if they could get a second and a high day 3 pick, that's probably about top value you could get for McDuffie. And when people are like, well, Sauce Gardner got 2 first, yeah, and he's younger, more team control, and the Jets just signed him to a long-term deal. So you really got to think about, what the Jets got for Sauce Gardner. They basically look at it this way. They basically got a first for the player. And Sauce Gardner, I will concede, is a better, younger player than Trent McDuffie. He is a true outside corner, whereas McDuffie is best in the slot. Slot corners are not as valued by NFL teams as much as outside corners. So I can't argue that Trent McDuffie is a better corner than Sauce Gardner. I can't do that. So think of it as one of those first round picks for the player itself. Okay. First round pick for Sauce Gardner, a second round pick for Trent McDuffie, maybe a second round plus for Trent McDuffie. And then think about the other first round pick. That was just buying it. The Jets buying that first round pick, because remember, I think it's about $35 million in cap space that they ended up buying and eating on that deal. So that's what the other first round pick was for, essentially. It was for picking up those costs that they ended up eating with that trade, because they had just signed him to an extension. So that's why you're not going to be able to get as much for Trent McDuffie. A big part of it is going to be just the cap value, what the Colts are paying, what they're responsible for. I mean, it's a fraction of his cost. So because the Jets picked up a cool coin on it. So yeah, I mean, if you do that, you can get a better draft pick. Hannah, I thought Brian Cook had his best season and should get an extension. Thoughts? I am with you. I mean, I've always been a big Brian Cook fan, but I did think that last year he showed some signs of not being fully recovered from that ankle injury. This year, I thought was his best year. I think he was without a doubt, clear head and shoulders, the best safety that the Chiefs had this year. And the fact that he was out there in week 18 with Nick Bolton and a bunch of young guys tells me the Chiefs are planning on him being a part of the future too. I mean, there were a lot of guys that were not on the field on Sunday that I know are not in the Chiefs' plans long term. So I think Brian Cook is in their plans. I think he will get an extension, at least an offer from the Chiefs. I think they're going to try and get it done. Wouldn't be surprised if you anybody from that 2022 class and getting some extensions done. I think Brian Cook is going to be the next one. That would be I guess, yeah. I think he's the next one to get something done, and I think it can be affordable. I mean, I don't think you know is he going to demand and be up for what maybe Justin Reed got when he signed as a free agent for the Chiefs. It's possible. I mean, that's probably a little more than I would want to spend on Brian Cook, and with his injury history, I'd probably like to back it down a little bit numbers wise, but that's fair market value more than likely. I was going to say, what do our good friends at Spotrac say about Brian Cook's market value? They've got him at 14.6. So yeah, I mean I think that's dead on. That's where I would be. Like I said, Justin Reed we got 16. Brian Cook, just because of the injury history, I would back off a little bit. So 14.6, average for 3 years, I would be absolutely fine with that. So I think that would be a good number. And of the Chiefs free agents, I think that's one guy that they definitely need to keep. So I am with you there. I mean, not going to get much of a reboot on Apocalypse. I'm sorry, but I think you might get pockets of roster rebuild. I don't know if you're going to get a full roster rebuild this year, though. Love Void Years enthusiast Luttrell. Kelly, any word on Kelsey? Nope. And I would expect that we are probably not going to hear anything from Travis Kelsey. Honestly, until early March, maybe late February, and I think that we will probably get that on his podcast. So that's probably where we're going to hear it first and foremost. I was just looking. I see Brant Tillis is interviewing for the Falcons job. He's no longer with the Chiefs, but he has been in a executive role with the Carolina Panthers, and apparently he's going to be interviewing for that Falcons football position role. He'd be great for that, by the way. Brant's a great football mind, great young talent in the front office. So wish him the best. Infopocalypse. Any chance Hunt or Veach has an intervention with Reed Spags about personnel ever? We see players like Bassa and Brashard Smith could have helped and got buried all season. Uche also comes to mind. Probably. I mean, Uche wasn't I mean, maybe it's the intervention that's getting me hanging me up a little bit, Infopocalypse, because I'm taking it as a little bit more extreme measure that you're talking about there. I mean, Uche was a great example of Brett Veach trying to get Steve Spagnuolo a player that he thought he could use. And whether Spags didn't want to use him or just couldn't find a way to use him, I'm not sure, but it didn't work out. So I don't think there's any doubt that, I mean, and this is the thing that I think is a bit of a hang up a little bit is that, and I had this conversation with some folks today, that there's this perception that some people have that because of their history, that Brett Veach is kind of just a yes man for Andy Reid. And I just couldn't see anything further from the truth because what and I had those questions. I had those concerns when the Chiefs hired Brett Veach that, "Wait a minute, are you just giving Andy Reid a GM here that's gonna do exactly what he wants and is bidding, and there's not gonna be any pushback and everything?" And I have not seen that. I honestly haven't seen it that way, and part of that I is absolutely because I mean, Andy Reid isn't in the weeds as much as people think. I mean, Andy Reid is not, sitting down and watching 500 players and their draft film and everything like that. He relies on Brett Veach to find those guys. He trusts Brett Veach to find those free agents. And I'm not saying he doesn't weigh in. It's not like Brett Veach just goes off and signs some guys and says, "Hey, coach, here's your players. Hey, Spags, here's your draft class." No, I mean, they go out and they do the research, they identify the players that they think would fit their system, they give them the tape, they let them watch them, they all weigh in on it, so it's a collaborative process, but it starts with Brett Veach and his staff identifying, "Hey, here's the people we're looking at that we think you'll like." Now you evaluate them, and there's gonna be some players, I'm sure, that Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo will say, "Don't like this guy, love this guy, draft him, or let's go sign this guy." It's gonna, there's gonna be some varied responses across the board, and there's not gonna be universal. There's probably gonna be some players that Matt Nagy likes that Andy didn't, and vice versa. And they're gonna weigh all of that in. And yes, I mean, some side's gonna win. I mean, on the defensive side, Steve Spagnuolo's gonna have, if he doesn't want a guy, Brett Veach probably isn't gonna draft him or isn't gonna sign him. I mean, there's some significance there, but I think that there's much more into the process and input that the coaches have than let's put it this way. Brett's not making decisions entirely on his own. He is making it with the input of the coaches. But what I'm seeing is that sometimes the coaches get it wrong too. And Bossa and Brashard Smith might be great examples of this because both of these guys are the same thing, which is that they're undersized players for their position. And that's a really difficult thing. And for a couple of reasons. One, I've said it before. I do think that one of the few flaws that Brett Veach has as a GM is that he does favor trying to find those diamonds in the rough, those undersized guys that can play bigger than they are, or have bigger hearts, bigger commitments, better skill sets. And sometimes it works perfectly because Trent McDuffie's one of those guys. Just Trent McDuffie was just one of those guys that was a great player who just happened to be 5'10. Sometimes you get guys that are undersized but look like they could be good players, and that's guys that will go, on day 3. I mean, to me, if you're missing on day 3 picks, it doesn't bother me that much. It will bother me consistently if you're missing on day 3 picks because you're consistently drafting guys who aren't big enough for the jobs that you're drafting them for. And I do worry that the Chiefs have a little bit of a history of doing that. But make no mistake, I mean, the Chiefs coaches were excited about Jeff Bossa. They were excited about Brashard Smith. What they couldn't know or didn't or underestimated was probably how those guys would fit in year 1. And we don't know. I mean, we really don't know how both of them are going to fit in with year 2. I mean, maybe they both, they mature a little bit physically, they grow up a little bit more, they learn a little bit more, with Brashard, does he need to be maybe a little bit bigger to stand up to the punishment that he's going to get at running back? Yeah, probably could use maybe 10 pounds of muscle. Would that affect the speed too much? You're hoping to get that without affecting his speed and agility too much. With Jeff Bossa, I mean, he's actually not that far off, size wise from a Drew Tranquil, but he's not quite Drew Tranquil yet. So not there. So does he just need a little bit more seasoning? And that's all he needed to get this year. Brashard Smith also just needed to have more patience. That was something that they obviously knew that they were going to have to develop and teach with him. So I think there's a reason why both those guys got buried this year. The question, is what's going to happen in year 2, 3, and 4? Can they break beyond that and be something more? I mean, if they can't, then obviously I think your lesson to be learned if you're Brett Veach is that you can't continue to bank on guys that are undersized that may have all the skills in the world and may have a lot of tools, but if they can't overcome their size deficiencies, that they're not going to be able to help you out. Or you need to have a different evaluation system. Maybe just those guys aren't going to be on your board at all anymore. You just got to start saying, okay, wait a minute, and the Chiefs used to have that for like running back. I mean, Brett Veach's ideal running back is like 6 foot 220. And Kareem Hunt is the closest that they've got to that. And Kareem's not even, I mean, I don't think Kareem's quite 6 foot. I want to say he's more like 5'10, 5'11, close enough. I mean, I think you'll say. Pacheco's not that. So, it's Rashard Smith certainly isn't that. So do you need to go back and start drafting your ideal running back, which is, 6 foot 220 with some juice? Yeah. And once again, I mean, if you're going to draft a guy that's 6 foot 220 and has some juice, you're probably not going to get him late in day 3. Probably need to start looking second, third, and fourth rounds. So, okay, lesson to be learned. If you're taking late round picks, again, you're probably need to be looking at guys that fit the size of the position and not just have outrageous skill sets. That not just guys that are fast because they're little, but guys that fit the position. So you have to learn some lessons from some of the things you've done. So I don't know if there needs to be an intervention with these things, because I think that when these players were taken all along, I think that I think everybody was on the same page. It's just that they got to the regular season, they got through camp, and they're like, well, wait a minute, you know what? Our only concern about these guys was that they were too small. And guess what? We learned that they're probably too small to help us right now. So you kind of knew what the downside risk was, and you still took the chance anyway. So maybe the answer is that you just have to think that it's you can't continue to think that way. You just have to have a different process. Yeah, I am a taker of all questions. I did take the one question earlier on what was said on a local radio station about the quarterback and maybe demanding a trade. I have not heard it. I will listen to it at some point, and I'll give you some thoughts next week. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to guess what was being said or how it was being framed. So I'll just say, like I said, I haven't heard that. I have not heard it speculated. So we'll just stick with that for now. I try to, like I said, I try to answer everything, and I try to be fair. And that's what, in this case, I do want to be fair to the person. I don't want to be working off, maybe an imprecise quote or an interpretation or just something that was, how something was said. So tell you what, I'm going to listen to it and bring it back up next week, and we can talk about it. So, Davis Kenneth. I know Spags likes high IQ guys that work well in complicated scheme, but can we at least get a couple of dogs on the line? Hopefully we can get one from Georgia. Yeah, well, you know what? That's one of the things, is that for sure when you got the 9th pick of the draft, a lot more chance to get a dog. And I think Omar Norman Lott, I think he's got that dog in him, as the guys like to say. So yeah, I think he will be one of those dudes. I mean, once again, with those injuries, it stinks because you worry about him and how much he's going to be able to contribute next year. I hope he's going to be able to, because that was a somewhat early in the season injury, but I think he's one of those guys. And you know what? I mean, honestly, what you're saying, it fits in really, really well with what we're talking about with like Rashard Smith and Jeffrey Bossett, and that, get some guys with get some guys that's got some dog in them. I'm not saying those guys don't. I think they might have it, but again, dog with some size. Brian, funny you should mention that. Aldo Nova, one great performer. I mean, Fantasy, if anybody's like old like me and remembers that song, it was great. Also, just a great writer and producer. He wrote, I can't remember what it was. He wrote something that was on Celine Dion's first album. And here I am once, outing myself as a Celine Dion fan. But and really honestly, I mean, her earlier work more than anything else. But great stuff. Aldo Nova he's a great performer. So big I can't say big Aldo Nova fan because I only got a couple of tracks of his on my phone, but I got some. And I would listen to some Aldo Nova anytime. Chris, this being a down year in the draft, is this a result of the transfer portal and NILs, the development that's simply not occurring these days in the college game? I think it is. I feel like it is, Chris. I mean, I know that, from talking to some of the talent evaluators and scouts and people in the front offices, they feel like a little bit of it is simply because a lot of it is just simply that good players are staying in college longer and therefore they're putting off coming into the league. And I mean, to me, it would seem like at some point that balances is out, that, we should go through some rough classes and then eventually, guys who are sticking around, it should balance out eventually. But to your point, I mean, the fact that guys are staying in college a little bit longer than they used to, maybe an extra season or two in some cases, because they're making good money in some cases. And yes, the transfer portal for sure. I mean, the fact that guys are moving around and you're not getting them a chance to maybe stay in a system and develop as much, I think that hurts too. Andy Reid will say from a quarterback standpoint, as long as they're throwing the football, it's great. And, maybe even being in different systems can't hurt. But I do feel like it is stunting development a little bit for sure. And, and every time a player sticks around in college a year or two longer or transfers and blocks somebody else who's developing, I mean, yeah, that happens, and that's an issue. So maybe we're just never going to get caught up with it. I mean, maybe that's going to continue to be an issue going forward, that guys are they're sticking around. They're, maybe they need that a little bit more development. And, and then teams, if you look at the way that teams draft, they are adjusting for players staying in college longer, because NFL teams would rather take those 21 and 22-year-olds than those 23 and 24-year-olds in a lot of cases, because they feel like that, those 23 and 24-year-olds are closer to their ceiling, that they are maybe more fully developed and don't have a lot more to squeeze out of them. Whereas those guys that are, 21, 22, they're younger, there's more upside. They feel like that they can get them younger and coach them up a little bit more. Yeah, it seems like we are in a long-term cycle here, Chris, and there's a lot of reasons for it, but yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, NIL is having a tremendous impact on it, because there's a lot of guys who are staying in college maybe a year or two extra. And then when they are coming out, they're a little bit older, and teams aren't wanting to draft a guy that's 25 years old in the first round. It doesn't always work out the way that teams want to. They're still trying to figure things out. So we'll see how it goes going forward. But Chris, what are your picks for the wild card weekend? Great question. Here it is. The Chiefs get knocked out, and I am so disconnected that I can barely tell you what the games are this weekend. I know who's playing and everything. I know what's going on. But okay, Rams. I mean, Panthers home field advantage, and it stinks that the Rams have to go on the road to play the Panthers. But it is what it is. But I'm still going to go with the Rams in that one. Bills Jaguars. I'm Josh Allen, ride or die in this postseason. I think, and honestly, I'll tell you right now, those are my two teams. I mean, I guess I'm going for a real upset Central Super Bowl, because I'm going with the Bills and the Rams. I feel like those are the two most well-rounded teams with the best quarterback. And I think the best quarterback's gonna win out. The other one in the AFC, I'm going in odd order here, I know, but I am gonna go with the Patriots over the Chargers. Chargers is a little inconsistent. Although I don't know what to make of the Patriots. I don't know how good they are or not. I don't think that they're the second best team in the AFC. I think this is going to be the first time that they've been punched in the face most of the season, and we're going to find out how they roll. But I am gonna go with the Patriots in that one. Bears and Packers. That is a tough one because again, I have my Bears concerns, but the Packers are just so underperforming. They've got injury problems out the wazoo. I am probably going to go with the Bears in that one. Eagles 49ers. I think I may. That's another tough one. I mean, these are I think are the two toughest for me of the weekend. I'm going to go 49ers in that one. Yeah, I think they're going to pull it off. I think they can pull it off over the Eagles. The Eagles are a good team. I know they're defending champs and all. Maybe I should go ahead and take them all the way at least to the next round. But I just like the 49ers. I think they got a lot of things going for them. I think they're more well-rounded than the Eagles are. I think the NFC West was really good this year. Two really good teams at the top of it. And those are just the wild card teams coming out of the West. So yeah, give me the 49ers. Gosh, we're gonna just put all the NFC West teams in the divisional round. And Texans Steelers, not really an upset. It's the home team. I'm going with the Steelers. I really don't want to because it's not doing well for my Aaron Rodgers is washed prediction. But right now, the Steelers are winning in spite of Aaron Rodgers, and he does seem to be game managing himself fairly well. So I'm going to go with my Steelers' final answer. So yeah, Rams and Bills is my Super Bowl pick. Bills 3-point favorite for me over the Rams in Super Bowl 60. So now you know who to root for or against. Let's roll. Oh, do you have any particular teams you are rooting for this postseason? I mean, not particularly. I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't really root for a lot of teams anymore these days. I mostly just root for good football. I mean, there's sometimes I'm going to be rooting for either some players that I've covered or coaches that I've covered that I respect and like. So when there's nothing invested in it for me, and I'm just sitting at home. I mean, I like Mike Vrabel, which is why it's difficult for me to be questioning the legitimacy of the Patriots. I don't. I mean, there's no point in my life have I ever cared for the Broncos, so I'm not going to be rooting for the Broncos in any formula. There's nobody that the Broncos could be playing where I would not be rooting for the other team. So I think that's just what most right-thinking Americans should be doing. Seattle's not entirely unlikable. Chicago's not unlikable, and hey, you got the EB thing going. Eagles have won, so I'm not rooting for them. I am indifferent to. I don't want an 8-9 team winning a Super Bowl, so I'm not going for Carolina. I mean, I got nothing against Green Bay. Everybody knows somebody has friends who are Green Bay fans. So sometimes you want the best for them. I mean, I just feel like I said, I feel like the Rams are the team that I feel like are the best well-rounded team with the best quarterback. So that's the team I got coming out of the West. So I guess I'm gonna have to root for them. And I mean, I don't have a problem rooting for Josh Allen. Josh Allen seems like a really good dude. So I wouldn't have a problem with Josh Allen finally getting the Super Bowl. That's why, I guess that's why I'm picking him to win. I don't have an extreme dislike for them or anything. And this is his best chance. This is it. I mean, if Josh Allen can't get it done right now, no chance. Chris, have to ask, are you wearing a hoodie or are you becoming a monk this offseason? Okay. Fitting in with figuring out the lighting scenario. We're still working on that. But here, lesson learned for the future. I am wearing a black hoodie. So there you go. I don't think it's my monk look. I do think it is my dark Jedi look though. So I am a Sith Lord in this outfit. Just I don't have a red lightsaber though. Jesus, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, will it count on your personal record book, not on mine? My personal record book. I mean, I'm picking them to win. So if they win it, I will do bragging rights about that one. Got no problems there. And like I said, I mean, I got no problems with Josh Allen. He seems like a likable dude. Davis Kenneth, what Cliff Kingsbury is Chiefs' next OC. I think he can get a lot out of Patrick and bring in some fresh ideas. What are your thoughts? We did talk about Davis earlier, but I'll give you my Cliff's notes here. I mean, I think that there's a decent crossover with Andy Reid and Cliff Kingsbury. They do a lot of similar concepts. They just do them in different ways. So if for the fresh ideas, Cliff could absolutely probably bring in some new concepts as far as what Andy does in the shotgun and some of the run concepts, because like I said, they do have similar approaches. I mean, the air raid concepts of Kingsbury and Andy Reid's West Coast pass concepts under Mahomes, especially with the pistol concepts that he's added over the years, they're not completely dissimilar. So I think there is some crossover, and there's some things that that Cliff could probably inject into this offense that's a little bit different. So um, I I think it is absolutely worth exploring. Not a bad idea at all. And 62 Outlaw, CD Outlaw, DC Outlaw. Thank you for being a new member. Always love to get new members, and that's why I wanted to give you a shout out. Even though I didn't see a question pop up, but if you got one, let us know, and we'll get you up to the top of the list. But I wanted to appreciate and give you thanks for being a new member. I know Nikki, I think Lateral members. We've had a couple of y'all members tonight chipping in, so always appreciate that. Appreciate the members and the super chats. Those are especially appreciated for someone who tries to make money doing this. So. And the fact that you're just even watching is helping. So I know I'm not supposed to say, I don't think I'm supposed to say those things under the YouTube license agreement, but hey, we can all have our fun here. All right. What I did not do before I went over there was to make sure I knew what time I was at question-wise. There you go, Aldo Nova. I'm big once again, great artist. It was the hoodie question. There we go. Yeah. Oh, there were question marks. There wasn't really a question. Kelsey's gone because the Pat situation is questionable. I think will be a factor in Travis's. Although it's entirely possible that Travis made up his mind and nothing's going to change his mind. So, Hannah, guess who is Trent McDuffie's agent? Yep, that's the same as Trey Smith. Yeah, and that's another factor into why I think there's a reasonable chance that Trent McDuffie gets traded, because you're Brett Veach, you have relationships with these agents, who is signable and who is not. And I felt like last year that was the decision. The decision was, do you sign Trey Smith long term or do you sign Trent McDuffie long term? And clearly, the Chiefs were able to get something done with Trent McDuffie. If they were able to have gotten something done with Trey Smith, rather, if they were able to get something with Trent McDuffie done in last offseason, I think they get that done and they don't sign Trey Smith. The money just, I don't think, was there and is there for both of them. So if you need to reboot and you need some more draft picks, you need to make a trade that's going to hurt. And a Trent McDuffie trade would absolutely hurt. But you think about it again, you go back to the principles of the Chiefs. What are they? And what are the principles of Brett Veach? Brett Veach wants to protect Patrick Mahomes at all costs. So that's always going to be the number one priority. That's why on their offensive line right now, they have a first-round draft pick. They got a second-round draft pick. They've got the highest-paid center in the league. They got the highest-paid right guard in the league. And next year, they're going to have a $15 million-ish right tackle. That's what you do if you're trying to protect, Patrick Mahomes. And obviously, might be protecting somebody else at the beginning of the season because the protection didn't always do its job this year. But that's what you're doing. And you're going to have to make a trade that hurts. You're going to have to do something. And Trey McDuffie is probably where it starts. And like you point out, Hannah, I mean, to me, the connection there is that you get it done with Trey Smith. I mean, yes, you could be arguing and make the argument that, hey, do the Chiefs go ahead and get that done with Trey Smith to try and get the goodwill? Maybe, but you also just sent the message through Trey Smith's agent and Trent McDuffie's agent that you're not afraid to pay top dollar for players at their position. So if you're Trent McDuffie and now the Chiefs were willing to make Trey Smith the highest paid right guard in the league, but they're not willing to make you one of the highest paid corners in the league, writing might be on the wall. And I say that despite the fact that I know I repeat this, but Trent McDuffie, I've got a ton of respect for him. He has handled himself so incredibly during his 4 years in Kansas City. He has been accountable. He has been a straightforward player and dude. Um, he's just a professional through and through. He is so good at his job. If he were 6'2", I would start building a statue of Trent McDuffie outside Arrowhead because he would be him. He would be that player, but he's not. And as a result, like I said, you've got to make tough decisions, and I think that's the tough decision that's going to be made. Folkestone, thoughts on quarterback 2? I think it's wide open, Folkestone, really. I mean, that the Chiefs almost entirely are not going to have Patrick Mahomes for OTAs and for May, for mandatory minicamp in June, and probably most likely for most, if not all, of training camp. So to facilitate the game, you're going to need 4 quarterbacks. And right now, I mean, I don't think actually you have anybody signed under contract for next year. Gardner's a free agent. I think Chris Oladokun is going to be an exclusive rights free agent, which means he's under team control. They can keep him with just a contract tender. So I'm going to kind of put him under contract. But I'm talking about 4 quarterbacks other than Patrick because you can't count him. They're going to need 5 quarterbacks on the roster this offseason with Patrick. So you need 4 more. I mean, do you re-sign Gardner? Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, I would start there. That would be a fine start. I would still bring back Oladokun. Maybe you saw enough from Shane Buechele to bring him in. I would bring another veteran, and I wouldn't be afraid of spending a day 3 pick on a quarterback too. I think the Chiefs probably should have been taking shots in the draft at quarterback periodically. I mean, they just haven't since they drafted Mahomes. So they've done some with some undrafted free agents, but really haven't taken a shot in the draft. So I would do that. I think they do need to bring in a veteran. Question is, what caliber of veteran can you bring in? I mean, I'll be honest. I think the smartest thing in the world would be for Kyler Murray to take a 1-year prove-it deal in Kansas City to work with Patrick, to work with Andy Reid, see if he can't just rehabilitate his career. Because what if he came in and lit things up for the Chiefs, he would get signed buku bucks somewhere else. So I would do that. But I think you have to have at least 2 veteran options. Like I said, if you want to start with Gardner, it's okay with me. I know some of you, I'm looking at the comments. I know you're not big fans, and honestly, I mean, you didn't really see enough to know either way, whether or not that Gardner was the right choice. The Chiefs, by and large, kind of like the Colts, they did not practice effed. So you kind of saw that with their backup quarterbacks all season long. I mean, Mahomes gets the bulk of the snaps. So once the season starts, you're not really preparing your backup to do anything for you. They tried, but yeah, I mean, Malik Willis, it seems like everybody wants Malik Willis this offseason. Huntley would be interesting. And like I said, I mean, Kyler, I think, is shooting the moon. I mean, that's, I think, just the best case scenario that if you could get a guy like that. But I definitely think you need a couple of veterans. And the only reason I would be okay with Gardner and or Oladokun and or Buechele ending up back in Kansas City for 2 of those 3 is that you want quarterbacks that know your system, that know what's going on, to make things a little bit easier in the translation. You can't. Andy Reid be pulling his hair out if he was going in and had just 4 brand new guys sitting in the room starting April 15th that he's trying to install his offense with. I mean, that would just be a nightmare. So I think you want some crossover. Lucas, despite your comment, yes. I mean, come on, Josiah Trotter, more Missouri linebackers. I'm all for it. Outlaw, thank you. 62 DC Outlaw, thank you very much for the kind words and the membership, as I mentioned. Truly appreciate that. Jesus, Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's to you as well. Sorry to hear about Nick's dad, and I apologize. I hadn't brought that up either. Since I didn't even mention 41 is the mic returned on Sunday, and so hopefully you were all able to catch it. Yes, Nick is back at work after his dad passed away, and appreciate all of the kind thoughts and kind words. I like I said on the podcast, I never got a chance to meet Nick's dad, but having met some of his friends and family and the turnout for the visitation and the services. Chillicothe, there was a incredible. He was obviously a very well loved and respected guy, and thoughts to the Jacobs family and for everyone. You know, Nick's doing his best, and he's back at work, and we'll be back. We're going to be doing 41 is the mic throughout the off season, so we're not going anywhere. We just took some downtime to kind of reboot, but we'll be back, and Nick will be there. Are you on the trade Chris Jones camp? I'm really not, Jesus. Mostly for, I mean, two reasons. One of which isn't a great reason. It's just that I mean, I don't want to see Chris Jones playing for somebody else. I want Chris Jones finishing his career in Kansas City. I mean, that's what the dude should do. Um, I would love it if Chris, tried to do a Travis this year and tried to maybe reinvent himself a little bit. Chiefs probably look at his playing time next year, and if they had had Omar Norman Lott this year, they probably would have done that. But um, I still think there's some juice in Chris Jones. Is he the player that he was a couple of years ago? No, I mean his best years are behind him. That's just the reality of it from the age that he is. Um, did he still do some things for you that helped you out this year? Yeah. And and when once again, if Chris Jones can continue to eat double teams and you draft a first round edge rusher, that should be a first round edge rusher that will benefit immensely from having Chris Jones around. Because you know what? The Raiders were still double teaming Chris Jones. And my favorite, play it was in the end zone, and it was a play where they almost got a safety themselves on that play. Chris was being double teamed, and one of the guys that was double teaming him peeled off to help out on the outside. I think it may have been Karloftis. I couldn't remember who it was that was coming around the backside. So one of the guard peeled off to help the tackle deal with the edge rusher. And as soon as Chris was one on one with this guy, that guy went down. I mean, it was just like, yeah, you can double team Chris Jones. You cannot single team Chris Jones. You're still going to have to work on that guy. And that's the thing. I mean, if you get a elite edge rusher opposite Karloftis with Chris Jones in the middle, Chris Jones is going to be a better player next year. And if Chris Jones isn't a better player, then your two guys on the outside are going to be great players because it's just going to immensely help those guys. So I would keep Chris Jones for a lot of reasons, and the second reason can be you're not going to get value for him with the money that's still on his deal. He's got, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a roster bonus due at the beginning of March, at the beginning of the new league year. The salary isn't huge, but there's enough money that if you're the Chiefs, you're not going to be able to trade him before the beginning of the new league year because that money is just sitting there that teams are going to have to eat. And I don't, if you traded him, you're not getting value. You're getting like a sixth rounder for Chris Jones. And I'm not getting a Chris Jones for sixth for Chris Jones. And then if you pay him the bonus, you're committing to Chris Jones. You can't at that point then trade him because you're going to be eating that cost, and you're not going to get value. I mean, you might get more than the sixth because the team's going to be paying less, but you're not going to get Chris Jones value. And like I said, I mean, Chris Jones with help on the outside is going to be a better player. Those guys are going to be better playing with Chris Jones. So this is what I will say. If you are of the camp that you want to take an edge rusher in the first or second round, maybe you're, lose for love and you're willing to take an edge rusher in the second round. If you want Karlaftis, Gelati, and your new pretty shiny edge rusher, if you want those guys and Omar Norman Lott to have an easier life in the NFL, you keep Chris Jones because he will make all of those guys better. Patrick, with the Chiefs out of the playoffs, what's in the agenda for your off season? Will you hit the draft more? Any vacation planned? Appreciate what you do for us. Well, I appreciate that, Patrick. Thank you very much. Yeah, you kind of hit it there. I'll be starting to draft a lot earlier. Nick and I are going to be talking about our 41 is the Mike plans and what we're going to be doing. And so I will be doing a little bit more draft prep over on Chiefs Digest. So you might see some things with just me. You might see some things with me and Nick. We might divvy up a few things. So you're definitely going to see more draft content from me this year than you usually do. And there's some other projects that I've been wanting to work on as well, both for the website and just off the website, offline, if you will. So we'll see if I can get some of those things done. I don't necessarily have any vacation planned. Not big vacation people over here. I guess I should be, but I'm frugal, so we haven't done the big vacation thing. But then again, it's also because the season runs so long that typically you just, I mean, good grief, the combine's like 2.5 weeks after the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. So there's not much downtime in a normal season. So with this extra month of free time, I hoping to be in a lot better draft position than I am usually this time of year. So, um, and because it came up a couple times, I think one of them was a joke, but I'm not avoiding the questions about what was said about Patrick and possibly asking for a trade. I'm like I said, I'm assuming it's a little bit of speculation, but without hearing what was actually said, I just don't feel comfortable commenting on it. I will gladly listen to it and then comment to my heart's content. But I don't like, I'll be honest, I don't like doing media commentary on anything when I haven't heard what was the original thing the media said. I don't want someone doing that to me, so I don't want to do it to anybody else. So that's my only point for addressing it the way I have so far. Luttrell, is Doug Peterson done coaching in the NFL? I wouldn't assume so. What has Doug been up to of late? I'm assuming he's doing something for somebody, and he's still a relatively young guy. So, what is Doug up to? He took off this past season. I mean, and what is Doug? Doug is 57. I mean, I would assume he's coming back at some point, whether it's this off season. I mean, maybe he's got something else in mind. Maybe he's made all his money he wants to, and he doesn't have to work anymore, and he's going to be fine. Not doing anything else. So I don't know, but it's not uncommon for guys to take a year off and then come back and refreshed. And I haven't heard about him, reaching out for anybody or being speculated with some jobs and everything. But like I said, I mean, at his age and with his track record, I'd assume that Doug would be back at some point with somebody. Honestly, at 57, I can't rule out Doug Peterson being back in Kansas City as offensive coordinator. Actually, I would be. I probably would expect Eric Bieniemy to be back in Kansas City before Doug, but that's neither here nor there. No real reason for that, but I imagine Doug's going to coach again at some point. It would makes too much sense to me, but Mary, Jordan Tyson is not one of the prospects that I know about at this point. I mean, this could be embarrassing for me. I mean, that might be like the 14th best player in the draft. I don't know. I do not know Jordan Tyson at this point. So that's will reveal to you how much I watch the NFL during the regular season, and I'll tell you, and I admit it. I watch more Mizzou than anything else. Didn't watch every minute of every Mizzou game, and obviously the only games I saw in person were Mizzou football games. So that's one factor. I mean, I've seen a little bit of KU and MU. Obviously, I saw KU because they played Mizzou. I'll catch a few games here and there. I caught a few bowl games. But I really usually don't start my draft prep until after the NFL season is over. If I'm watching college football during the season, I'm just doing it for fun and entertainment. I'm not doing a draft prep. I'll admit that. I am missing something here with the Mets bullpen catchers for because they cut for his dad. I'm missing something in the comments. I'll have to go back and figure that discussion out later. Woozy guy, can you break down why Nate Shieldhouse has been getting attention as a possible good option at OC? He's a KC native. I actually graduated high school with him. He's always been a great leader. I mean, you've hit two right there, Woozy guy, of the two of the things in his checkbox there. Obviously, he's well known in Kansas City. People in the organization know him because people in the organization, get involved and watch high school football. So people have known him for a long time. He's very well respected. He was obviously they scouted him in college, so there would have been that connection too. That they would have been looking at him and everything. So yeah, like I said, the fact that he's viewed as a strong up and coming coach, got those leadership qualities like you mentioned. The local ties always entertain people. It means that people here in Kansas City know him, but I mean, ultimately, the other thing is that he's been successful as a coach so far. He's had a lot of success at the college level, and making the transition to the NFL. There's a lot of respect out there for him. So yeah, he is one of. I would be very surprised just based on the rumor mill and what you hear about Nate Shieldhouse is that I'd expect that he probably would be an offensive coordinator in the NFL this year. It certainly seems like the direction is going that way. Hey, is he ready to do that in Kansas City with the pressure that would come with it? Both being a favorite son locally and, with the pressure on that position with a team like the Chiefs. I have no reason to believe that he couldn't handle it. I think, like I said, I think it would be a lot. But I think he'll be an OC. I think he will be in the NFL this year. That certainly seems to be where the tea leaves are going. Kelly, no to Jameis Winston. I would only love Jameis Winston because those pressers would be off the chain. Oh, I would be going up to Jameis Winston's locker every single day trying to talk to that dude. I mean, I might just start up Jameis Winston Digest if that dude was here in Kansas City. I don't know if he can play quarterback for the Chiefs or anything like that, but dude, man, that would be entertaining as all get out. But probably not Andy Reid mold for a quarterback. Jesus, we did this last year. We did some live mock drafts on the Q&A. So we'll have to do that again this year. Absolutely. I'm for it. We can bang out a couple. We'll get maybe we can even direct Nick in here to do a live mock draft for us. We're not going to meet our requirement of getting a 1 hour Q&A to get Nick lured back in here. So tonight will not qualify as one of those under 1 hour shows to lure Nick back in, but maybe I can lure him back in for 15 minutes for a mock draft. So, hey, everybody, you are welcome. Hopefully I saw everyone's questions that didn't require me speculating about local radio. As I say with a joke. I saw you say that, Jimmy, and I was afraid you were saying that when I didn't know who Jordan Tyson was. So it's entirely possible that I just lost all my street cred. I'm not sure. We're going to get out of here. So unless anybody truly has some last minute final questions, fire away. But otherwise, I know Nick and I are planning on doing a podcast on Sunday. We have not figured out the time yet. So it may be earlier or later than usual. Who knows? I'll be working on a few things this week. Probably nothing popping up unless there is an emergency podcast in January. If the Chiefs hire a new coordinator or lose some coaches or there's any turnover going on. January is usually a fairly quiet month. And like I said, unless there's some turnover. So wouldn't expect any emergency shows unless that's the case. But otherwise, you will get the live Q&A here on Tuesday night throughout the month of January. Hopefully, we'll have a few other surprises for you for 2026. Getting into the flow. This is our first Q&A of 2026. So, hey, got nothing to go from up from here. Truly appreciate everybody coming in. One last question, it looks like, from Shefferl. I need to figure out how I can get the names that you all really use instead of your like usernames, because these are it's still so weird. I don't know why they switched over to this, but I'll try and figure it out. Regardless, ever have a question you really want to ask coach but reserve for later? Yeah, there are. I mean, because and sometimes there are definitely questions I've wanted to ask Andy Reid that I have not, because the I probably just forgot my opportunity or missed my opportunity. But I'll be completely blunt here. I mean, I will consider the format for my question. I mean, pretty importantly, when it comes to especially Andy, because we get Andy in different formats and at different times. The Monday Zoom press conference, the Wednesday in-person press conference, the Friday after practice press conference, and the Sunday after game pressers are all different fields. And there's questions you wouldn't ask in one to me that you will ask in another. I mean, after a game, you're almost asking no question that's not related to the game. That's how it is. And if you do ask a question that's not related to the game, you're probably not going to get a very good answer. To me, especially if I've got a question that I think might be a little edgy, I might be more likely to ask it in the Zoom on a Monday, because it's not confrontational. I don't even, that may not be the right word, but there's it's a little different, and those Zooms, even though I know they're picked up just like the live in-person pressers are, but they have a little bit different audience. So I think that there's just a different tone to them. Andy is in a different mood on Mondays, than he is on Wednesdays and Fridays and Sundays. Um, you know, and hey, whether or not the team won or lost before a game, that will go into factor. If I've got a question that is really, I think, a good question, an important question, I might not ask it on Monday after a loss, because you usually don't get the best answers from Andy Reid on Mondays after a loss. So I might wait either until Wednesday, or I might even wait till the following Monday, if see if they win, because you just want him in a different mindset. Andy is like, he is all business on Fridays. So you can ask lighthearted questions or off the wall questions. The most off the wall question I think I ever asked Andy Reid on a Friday was the week that on Twitter, we're going around, was that picture of him and his brother with Batman. And I mean, I had to. I mean, I couldn't wait, a week to ask that question. So I was like, I gotta ask him that on a Friday. And I didn't get a terrible answer. I mean, I didn't get as good an answer, I think, as I would have gotten on a Monday. But those are the things that go into it. And yeah, I mean, there's a couple of questions that I've got for Andy that, even for this season, that I probably have not asked yet, because I wanted to be in the right occasion. And there are questions we do occasionally get Andy Reid without cameras around, and that's a different time, and that's when you will get questions that you're more like I'm much more likely to ask without cameras around, because we can have more of a free flowing discussion. He's going to be a little bit less guarded with his answers and more open. So I'm going to ask those questions in that. And Tom, I don't take it as offense, Tom. I mean, I probably should, but I'm not. That saying that there's way too many softball questions. I think there's room for both, and I think you have to, recognize that everybody's got their own stories and their own things that they're working on and need to do. I mean, um, if you're a TV reporter and the Chiefs are on your air that week, you're going to have more Chiefs stories. You're going to be doing a pregame show. So you may be working on some feature stories that, do require maybe lighter questions. There's almost always a reason for the tone of questions that reporters ask. And, and bottom line is that, at least in my case, I'm trying to be as objective as I can. I'm never asking a question like I know the answer, or that I am expecting a certain answer. I'm trying to never ask a question that will give me the answer I want, because that's not what I should be doing. It's not my job. I'm trying to shed light, and sometimes that means I'm asking questions that I don't necessarily think are softballs, but maybe they're politely worded, because I think that you get a more uh, accurate answer and a deeper answer if you ask a question politely and respectfully than adversarially. And and I know not Kansas City is different than a lot of other markets. There are other markets where that's not the case. That there will be some terrible questions. Maybe some not terrible questions, but just adversarial questions. And I'm not sure that's always the best case either. I'm not sure that, being adversarial is the best way to go. And sometimes the format is the case. I'll be honest. We had a rather significant debate amongst a lot of us in the local media a few years ago when a question was asked of Andy Reid that kind of put him off and caused him to kind of cut the thing short. And it was the last media availability for a couple of months. And it was like, hey, was that the appropriate way to go about it? Because if you have that question, should you phrase it in a certain way or ask it at a certain time, so that if you get the answer, you get the response in the reaction that you did, maybe you're not wasting and causing us to lose five or six more questions. I mean, I think those are legitimate debates to have, amongst you and everything. um I am gonna push back on that one, because and I understand where you're going here. And let me tell you, I mean, I will take Adam Teicher every single day of the week and twice on Sundays. I love Adam like a brother. He is he and Therese Paler are the prototypes of the reporter that I want to be. And I know I'm still far from either one of them. And I want to continue to try and get closer to them as much as I can all the time. So, Whitlock, though, no, nobody needs Whitlock. I'll be honest, I've got very little, if any, respect for Jason Whitlock. Nothing to do with politics or anything like that. I know he's gone a lot of different directions. He is a columnist. He's an opinion writer, and that's different than a journalist. And I I disagree with the approach that you should just be adversarial for adversarial's sake, and that you should be the devil's advocate in some of these conversations. And honestly, you know what, some of the questions that we see from New York and the Philadelphia that we talked about them being tough markets, those are the same thing. I mean, those are sometimes opinion writers too that are just trying to stir something up. And trust me, in this day and age, we get a lot of people who are simply trying to go viral. And Jason, I've got no qualms in saying it, Jason Whitlock was ahead of his time, because he would be even bigger now than he is if he was coming up today, because all he was doing was trying to push buttons and get attention. And that's so much more suited for Twitter and social media and TikTok today than it was just for even newspapers back then, although he sold a lot of newspapers. So there you go. I guess I should probably call it quits there, Dom. I'm probably probably in enough trouble as it is. Alex, Haley was an EB type coach, right? I'm going to probably disagree there too, because I did not cover Todd Haley. But I mean, if you want to say that Todd Haley was competitive, and what's the word? I mean, I want to use, I kind of want to use EB's phrase and say, if you want to see he was a competitive prick like EB was, and hopefully, YouTube will be okay with that phrase. I got no problems there. I mean, but I guess, like I said, I say this only as a observer from the outside on Todd Haley, and as someone who has spoken with people who did cover Todd Haley extensively. I think the difference between EB and Todd Haley is competency. EB is quite competent, and Todd Haley was not. So that's probably the biggest difference between the two. Man, you got me after after you get to 9 o'clock. I guess you get me saying things that now you got. It's like Chiefs Digest after midnight here. So you get all getting me in trouble. Um, these, these will not be on the clips unless one of you clips them and puts them out there. So uh, let's see. All right, well, there you go. Well, good. It's created some good comments there for us there at the end of the show. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Oh, and I think I missed that. There we go. Steam and Demon with the final super chat. Um, love it that we can go out on a super chat. Perfectly done, Steam and Demon. You get a golf clap for me. Thank you very much. What are the odds John Harbaugh does TV for a year and waits on 2027 for the Chiefs? Andy retires after 2026 and the reboot is close to being done. Ooh, man. I mean, you've got me now like really intrigued about that one because remember, I mean, John Harbaugh is a branch of the Andy Reid tree. I mean, that's where John Harbaugh got his, really connection to the NFL was working for Andy Reid in Philadelphia. And he went straight from Philadelphia and everybody talks about, him being a special teams coordinator. He was a defensive backs coach his last year in Philadelphia for Andy Reid before he went to go be head coach for the Ravens. So, he wasn't strictly a special teams coach. And I mean, he's 63, so he's what, 5 years younger than Andy. I mean, I think you'd have to have some real high, falutin math there to make it work. I mean, I think you'd have to have some communication there. I mean, but let me say this, Demon. If John Harbaugh does go to TV in 2026, I'm probably going to be convinced that you're on the right path because that would be the path to do. Hey, he could even do Spags, take 2026 off, move to New Jersey, go to NFL Films every day like Spags did, but going and doing TV for a year and then coming to Kansas City or a year or two later. I mean, I'm still assuming that Andy's going to be here until close to 2029 when his contract runs. But if Andy were calling up John Harbaugh and saying, "Hey, John, I'm only going to be doing this maybe another year, maybe two. You want to go do TV for a couple of years and then take my job? Hey, we can work that out." That would be brilliant. I mean, I had not connected those dots there, Steeman, but I would pay to see that. That would be something right there. I can't, no 10 out of 10. No notes on that idea. That's a beautiful one. That's a great one to end the show on, everybody. Have a great week. Nick and I will see you on Sunday sometime for 41 is the mic. Otherwise, we'll see you next Tuesday, and we'll just keep going on with 2026 and see if we just can't make this the best year ever. I will say one plug. I'm going to do this on social media because I just for my own ego and self-satisfaction, and I was going to do this for the holidays and say, hey, if you want to get me a Christmas present, help me get 70 more people to subscribe, and it not you don't even have to be a member, just the free subscription on YouTube because I'm that close to 10,000 subs now. So if you wanted to get me anything for Christmas, just ask one of your friends, tell some folks on Twitter, whatever, send a link for the Chiefs Digest YouTube page and say, hey, go over there, hit follow, hit subscribe, hit the bell, just the follow Matt along. I would take that because getting to 10,000, I said after 10,000, when I hit 10,000, I would never ever beg for subscribers again and followers. So get me to 10,000 and you will never hear this again. Everybody have a great week. Appreciate the discussion. You are all the best. Take care, and I will talk to you all later.